Hi, it's John from Crafts by John UK. Today's project is this new home card. You can see it's a very modern layout, so very simplistic imagery, quite striking. No back panel, straight on the actual card blank itself, as you can see. But basically, it's quite a modern, funky, fresh design. So I've used this little house die that I have. It cuts out the house and the roof and you can stick them together. I've backed it with some paper and then I've lifted it from the base of the card. So you can see it's kind of sitting proud. I've then cut this little planet out. I've embossed that with a textured embossing folder and then just put the whole thing inside this frame. We've got 3 little pearls for interest and then just a very simple congrats on the new home message. It's quite modern, very clean and simple, all one colour, all white card making, which is quite classy. It's interesting, if you watch the video, you'll see I made a few blunders along the way, but could you tell? Probably not. If you're interested, give the video a watch. Okay, let's get started. So I've got myself here a piece of just plain white paper. This is a scrap from another project. You can see it's got a bit of a printed line on it. But what I'm going to do basically is I'm going to use this just to cut my central panel. So you can see, I'm just reaching for my yellow tape, that this is a very minimalistic kind of clean and simple card. So I'm just going to use a little bit of yellow tape to stick this down basically, and I'm going to cut this square shape out on my Gemini basically. Just drop the plate on the floor. So I'm just going to put that into my Gemini with its usual sandwich. So that is clear plate on the top, cloudy plate, no, in fact I tell a lie, cloudy plate, black material, and then what I'm cutting, and that completes the sandwich. These plates are about 5 years old, and you can see how much use they've had. All the people who bleat about their Gemini plates not lasting, that's because you're doing it wrong, basically. Maybe that's something I'll do another video of. Are people interested in what you need to do to sort your Gemini plates out? If so, let me know in the comments and I'll maybe do a video just about that. Anyway, I'm just die cutting this. And this will be our main panel. There we go, so let's have a look at that. We've now got our main panel, which is actually just a frame, basically. There we go. So that's our frame, which we're going to use. Now, we also need another piece, but that piece is going to go inside this one. So I could either use a piece of this, or I could actually use that cutout piece, but I'm going to save this cutout piece for another project. So I've got this piece here, which is good enough for what I need. I'm just going to rip these edges off. And then what I'm going to do is put this in my embossing folder. But before I do that, I'm going to cut the shape I want, because what I want is a circle that's going to fit inside the frame that we cut and create, in effect, our world. So we've got our little house die. So I've already cut this one out because I had it spare from a previous project. This is a really cute little set with a house on it, and it's got 3 little hearts that come out of the chimney like smoke. And I've actually cut this out already. I haven't stuck it together yet, but basically our card composition is going to be a circular world and basically a little house sitting on the top of it. And that's going to be how it looks. So what we need to do is we just need to cut this the right size. So we've got enough room to sit our little world, sit our house on our little world. So we're not going to need too much at all. So I'm just going to move them to one side while I just cut this. So the first thing I'm going to cut is just that, basically, just to get a bit, basically. Process is always cut first and then emboss afterwards, because if you try and cut after you've embossed, you'll find it actually gets rid of all the embossing. So all the lovely peaks and troughs you get that create the effect of the embossing folder will just get flattened in your die cutting machine. So I've just cut that. We've now got a nice stitched edged piece. I'm going to pop that spare bit on the side there, and then I'm going to put this straight into our embossing folder. This one is a kind of a, you can see it's just got a kind of a texture on it, which I thought was quite interesting and could represent the land. So I'm just going to pop that in there like that. Obviously when embossing you don't need quite as many layers, so I'm just going to do my top and my bottom. I'm going to leave the cloudy and the fabric and just literally do the two clear plates. So I'm just going to pop that through my machine. And then we've got the bits we need. There we go. So you can see that's quite a nice little hillock for our house to sit on. So let me just put this away. So what we're going to do in terms of composition, I was going to actually print the base out, but I think what I might do is just actually put it straight onto a card. So that's kind of how it's going to look. So we will have our frame central on our card. The land will be kind of poking up through the bottom of the frame. Obviously we're going to stick all this down, and then we will put our little house on the hill. I'm going to back the house as well with some scrap. And that is our card basically. And we need to fit a sentiment on it. So we need to find a sentiment that's suitable. As I'm not going to print the base, what I'll probably do is just raise that up slightly so we can put a sentiment here. I mean, we could actually do it with no sentiment, but I think I probably still would like one. So anyway, that's what we're going to do. So we need to start putting things together. So I'm just going to grab my glue. This is my basic PVA. I don't use all these fancy glues. I just think there's absolutely no need for it. And I'm going to basically put some glue and stick the roof of the house to the base of the house. So to do that, I would literally just put a little thin layer of glue there. That's actually quite a lot of glue there. But that's all we need to do. Stick that down so it looks kind of level. There we go, and kind of equal between the two. Now, as I said, we're going to back this just so it looks kind of nicer. I've got some glue on the front there actually, which I'm just going to wipe off with my cloth. I think I went a bit overboard with the glue there. Just to get rid of that. There we go. That should be all right. If it leaves a mark, I can soon cut another one anyway. In fact, I think actually looking at that, that is going to leave a mark. So I think we're going to cut the house again. So let's just grab a bit of scrap again, same white paper. And it would help if I put the dies the right way up. There we go. So actually, let's just cut that again. So back to our normal sandwich this time, because obviously we're die cutting. So I'm just going to put that on the base layer. This is a really useful little die. I don't even remember where I got it from, but I've used it so many times for new home cards. And new home cards do seem to be one of the ones that you actually send the most. Okay, so we've cut that. Excuse me. Just going to grab myself my tweezers, peel that off. Now you do get lots of little loose bits on this one, so kind of make sure you keep them all. But basically there's quite a bit of pressing out to do on this because all the doors and windows. The roof is a little bit easier. Just got a few chimney bricks there, but basically you get your roof, you get your house. First thing I always do is just pop out all the windows. I mean, if you want to be really clever, I suppose you could cut it again in yellow or something and then have all your windows in yellow, but it's actually easier to just put a piece of paper behind if you want to do that. Then don't forget your dies, the little hearts. And that's it. So you can see how super quick and easy it is to cut that again. So what I'm going to do this time is just put a little bit less glue on. I don't quite know what I did last time. I just squeezed the bottle too hard, I think. Just a very thin little layer of glue at the top there, and then stick our roof on. Just trying to get it kind of level. There we go. So there's our roof on. What I'm going to do now is again take another offcut of card and put that behind. So to do that, I'm just going to lay the card down and just guess it by eye. So it's going to be about there, and it's going to be about there. Just backing this just fills those holes in so that it looks quite you can see the difference, obviously, like that. But also when you then put it against the white background, it makes it look quite different as well. So I think that's a good thing to do. So to stick that on, I'm just going to put dab a bit of glue around in the bits where there is paper and not the holes, and then lay that down. I've got to make sure I get that at the bottom because you can see it through the door. So there we go, that's done. Cool. So we've got our little house. Right, I'm going to just move those hearts off to the side and then put my pin back in my glue bottle. Cool. Right, next thing to do is to stick this down. So actually I didn't need to do that, did I really? So let's just stick a little bit of glue on there. And we're going to put our frame down like that. So just put your hand on it. The warmth of your hand will kind of stick the glue. Always helps. There we go. So we've got our little frame and our world in effect. And then it's just a case of then putting this together. Now I'm just going to check. I think I might have over here a printed oh, I know I haven't actually. So I'm just going to print out a very basic new home. Okay, so I've printed some sentiments out. So we now have a sentiment that's suitable. So I've done congrats on the new home. It's quite modern. I haven't put a dot on the abbreviated word or anything. We're leaving it quite modern. So I'm going to stick this down, and I know roughly, I'm just going to put the sentiment underneath, so where I'd roughly put it. So I'm just going to go for it actually. This is quite a simple card. So a bit of glue on this textured bit at the back. Need it quite a bit because we need to just make sure it goes into the holes. And then I'm just going to go around the frame. That's off the edge of the camera. But basically just gluing everything. So I'm going to pick that up and then I'm just going to put that down. I'm not putting a base layer on this card. We're just going to actually do it straight onto the actual card itself. So let's get that roughly lined up. I think somewhere like this. Just need to make sure we get it straight. There we go. It looks pretty good. Actually, that's not straight, is it? It's quite difficult to see. I'll screw that up now. But I can probably, because the camera is right in front of me, it makes it quite difficult to see. But I think we've kind of just about rescued that. There we go. That's fine. There we go. So I think we're okay. I'm just going to use a piece of scrap and just give that a good press down. Always good to put a piece of scrap paper on top when you're doing stuff like this, just in case you've got any dirty fingers. Just protects your project. So we've got our house now to add. So what we're going to do with this, we're going to lift this up on some foam pads because that just adds a piece of extra interest. This is why we put the backing piece of paper on. So I've got some foam pads here that are quite wide. They're actually just about the perfect size for this. So let's just grab those, and we're going to just use probably 3 of these. There we go. Doesn't matter, they won't be seen. But basically, we just use 3 of these to lift the house from the paper, and then in effect, it can sit on top of the world. So let's just suss out where we're going to put that. Something like that. There we go. And then the only thing that remains is to put our 3 little hearts on. So obviously flip them over because we're going to stick them. Make sure you stick the back, not the front. And another little tip, use your tweezers to hold small things down whilst you put the glue on. And then you'll find that the glue will just pick up the piece with you. And obviously I've done this kind of backwards, but I kind of know where these go. I've used these enough. So I'm now going to put the glue on the bigger pieces, which is somewhat easier. Just do both of them at the same time. And then, again, pick that up, plop it down, and then the big one's actually got enough room that you can pick it up properly. So how I usually do it is like this. So I usually do the big heart kind of coming out of the chimney and the other 2 heading off in a direction. So you can see it kind of looks like that, and it looks quite cute. There we go. And then what I normally do, just to finish that off, is I usually get a little pearl gem. So I'm just going to use my scalpel because these are all in a single strip. I just cut the glue from between them, and then I use my other tweezers to just pick them up. There you go, and sort of do a slide movement. So I just usually blob them down on top of the hearts. And that looks quite nice now. I just moved that one, haven't I? So I've done really well. Obviously it wasn't completely stuck down. There we go, let's just put that back into place. Luckily this glue does dry clear. There we go, just press that down again. There we go, and then just pick up the other 2. Sorry, now working upside down, but just easier to get to. And I use the end of the tweezers to just press things down, and even put one on this little tiny one as well. There we go. So we've got our 3 little hearts. Now that one, annoyingly, the glue pad for the heart is actually underneath. So actually I'm going to just do another one for that one. But don't worry that we've torn that heart because you can't really see it anyway. But that's one thing with these, just to make sure, doing really well here, that let me just drop that one on the floor, that the glue pad for the actual pearl is directly underneath. And a way to move that, if it's on one side or not, just stick it down and drag it along. There we go. You'd never know. So the only thing that remains really is for us to cut out our sentiment. So I'm just going to use one of these bottom ones. So I don't want it very wide because I've got loads of space. So I'm just going to get in quite tight with my lettering. And I leave these lines on here now because it's just easier to see because you've got something to kind of line up to. So I'm just going to cut that, flip it round and cut it from the other side. If you've got a printer, this is a really easy way of doing sentiments. Get exactly what you want. It's really good for custom cards as well. You need to print specific names. And then we just need to cut left and right. So I'm just going to do it by eye. There we go. And then same on the other side. I'm not measuring. You don't need to really measure stuff like this. It doesn't need to be that precise. There we go. So that looks absolutely fine. Right, I'm just going to pop them away. Every now and then I print one of those off. Obviously, like most card makers, I've got a million sentiments, but yeah, it's just handy to be able to print some stuff out as well. Right, I'm just grabbing my bone folder. When you cut stuff with a scalpel, you always get a slightly raised edge. So I always just go over the edge with a bone folder just to pop that down. There we go. And then we're going to go straight in here with our glue. There we go. Once I've glued, I typically tend to pick things up with my tweezers. So again, now just need to pop that down roughly in the middle and get it pretty much lined up. I think that looks about right. That's about 2. That's about 2. I'm calling it and saying that is in the right place. So again, just going to get a bit of scrap. I'm just going to press that down. One of the reasons for using scrap, particularly in this one, is that I've just printed this, so there is a chance that that ink is still wet, in which case I do not want to be smudging it. And there we go, there's a card. That's super, super quick. Obviously, I did have bits already cut, but then ended up redoing them anyway. So I think that's a really nice, simple design. Obviously, you could colour the house in. You could use anything here. Even if you haven't got a circle die, you could just cut out a piece of land like that. The little house obviously is quite specific, but that's just something I happen to have. But this is quite a nice, simple layout, I think, and suitable for a kind of a modern card. If you've enjoyed that, maybe think about subscribing to my channel. That way you'll get notified when I post new content. I usually post at least 2 videos a week, a mixture of shorts and long ones. And there's several different playlists on my channel, some with techniques, some with whole card making. So depending on what you're looking for, check it out. And there's lots of tips and tricks along the way. Hope you've enjoyed watching, and I hope to catch you soon.